question very commonly, a couple dozen letters a night, what can I do? There is no formula. You know, there are a lot of things you can do.
My question is, basically it's been touched on by several people, but you said some years ago that in a future society, the ideal goal is to identify the authority figures and to challenge them. Now that we're seeing that the authority figures basically are the corporations and through their spokesperson, the media, where everything is being corporatized and privatized from war up to prison life, up to atrocity, where do you see life going in, say, the next 20 years?
Corporatized, where do you see life going in the next 20 years?
Well, you know, that's just one of those things, that's in your hands. I mean, there's nobody else who can answer that question. I mean, things are pretty ugly now. As I mentioned, I've never seen such fear and anger in the country before. On the other hand, the opportunities are greater than before. There's much more freedom. And we have a legacy, the legacy of people who won that freedom, and they fought for it. Not very far in the past, there have been big steps forward. Women's rights, civil rights. I mean, there's debate now about concern about the environment. 40 years ago, there was no debate about it. It wasn't even an issue. You know, who cares? The environment's infinite. You know, resources are infinite. Okay, we're better off. There's much less repression now than there used to be. There's a lot of complaining about post 9/11 repression. Well, it's nothing like what it's been in the past. That means that we have the chance to decide what's going to happen to the world in the future. And these are questions of will and choice. Nobody's ever been able to predict it. I mean, you go back to the 1920s, it looked like as though the labor movement was completely dead, that Wilson's repression just wiped it out. In fact, as one of the leading labor historians in the country, David Montgomery at Yale, wrote a book called The Rise and Fall of the American Labor Movement. He was talking about labor militancy in the late 19th century, continued through the early 20th century. By the 1920s, it was dead. Well, 10 years later, you had a huge rise in labor militancy. Formation of the CIO, sit-down strikes, and so on. It's happened many times. I mean, the 1950s appeared to be an extremely passive period. I mean, the most activism you got was Jack Kerouac on the road somewhere. But it looked as if everything was over. I mean, the standard line in, say, sociology was people like Daniel Bell, end of ideology, all the problems are solved, a little tinkering around the edges. And then came the 1960s, the whole country blew up, and a lot of important things happened. So these are really matters of choice. And we have a lot more choices than people had in the past, and certainly more than most people in the world have. So, okay, let's do something about it.